No, you don't need the.
I'm doing this my way.
He a legend, he a legend, he a legend. He a legend, he a legend, he a legend.
Talking on it though, then
He
you
a
can't work
legend.
it up later.
Welcome to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league of items. Welcome to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league of items.
Hey, what's up everybody? It's Michael from League of Items, and I just wanted to make a quick video about the third game between Fnatic and Movistar. Yesterday, when we were doing the breakdown for this, I said that I thought Movistar had an advantage in the draft, just in general, because of the way that their team played and has drafted in the past. And I think that the third game specifically shows the difference between how you can approach pick ban. It's not that one way is like right and one day is wrong in general, but when you start pinning it down to like the specific patch that they're playing on, the environment that they're playing in, the players that are involved, I think that it like pins down enough variables in the equation where you can make not definitive statements, but like statements with more implications and like more accurate. So basically in game one, I think that Movistar won the draft. Game two, I think that Movistar won the draft. And game three, I think that Movistar won the draft, but less than they did in the first two games. So I have this all muted. I'm going to play it on double speed and we can just go through it pretty fast. So Fnatic is going for set first pick. I think they did this all three games. They had set all three games. Movistar Riders had Ornn all three games. Ornn is a very easy champion for top laners to play. He's been one of the most picked champions for a long time. He gives his team a lot of additional value as the game goes on. So when he hits level 14, his team gets 2 items or 3 items that are fully upgraded, which add additional gold onto his team's side. So right when Ornn is picked on Movistar Riders side, Fnatic kind of needs to decide, like, are we going to double down and try to play for the early game, or are we going to try to outscale the opposing team? They instantly go with Syndra and Renekton. So Syndra is a pretty good blind pick mid laner. You can play her in team compositions where you're trying to scale and teams where you're not trying to scale. Renekton, on the other hand, really falls off in the late game, and you'll hear that phrase a lot in the League of Legends community. Falling off means that if they don't have a substantial lead in the game, their champion is not going to be able to perform the way that it's intended to. So Renekton's primary job in the early and mid game is to create an advantage over their opposing laner. So in this case, it's Renekton versus Ornn, and then take that lead and use it elsewhere on the map to create other advantages for his team that can snowball into larger leads. So just based off of what we've seen so far, you would expect Renekton to try to focus on killing MF in the mid-game team fights and using that to get objectives. So that's something to watch out for when we go through the game, which hopefully doesn't take too long. It's on double speed, so I guess it was like a 30-minute game or something like that. Pick up Orianna. So Orianna's a pretty good champion. I know that some people were complaining about Chico, I guess that's how you say his name, their performance on that champion in the second game. A lot of the Orianna ults weren't doing a great job. Your goal is really to hit multiple people. So far we have 3 ultimates on the side of Movistar Riders who have AoE ultimates that can get more than one person, which is always pretty good. They lock in Sejuani. So what this does basically is they've locked in 4 of their champions, and then they're leaving their support as the last pick. You don't see this as often because you want the other positions on your team to be able to be more flexible, but sometimes you get into a spot where you just have your support being your last pick for one reason or another. It looks like these are 2 power picks, and then they didn't want this to get banned out. Graves was banned this game. Aphelios wasn't banned this game, so I'm surprised neither team picked up Aphelios early in the draft, specifically during the first rotation, but that happens, you know. So Fnatic gets Aphelios eventually. So this is a mistake on Movistar Riders' part. I think that I would rather have X-Matty on Ziggs or something like that, because if you look at their team composition, where else is their physical damage going to come from? It's going to be Olaf and Renekton, so that's not enough physical damage in the late game, in my opinion. one thing that we talk about a lot is immobile AD carries. Both of these AD carries don't have a dash, so they're really reliant on correct positioning throughout the game, and anybody who watched this match in real time will know that that is going to have an impact on this game. So this is when we see the first interaction of the game. I'm going to play through the whole thing, but I know that the first one happens in the bot lane. So basically, Movistar has pushed in bot and has what this is called priority, where their wave is pushing into the opposing tower. So they really dictate how this lane is going to go. So we get a gank coming in from Olaf. Movistar looked like they were ready for this, and they instantly teleport. And so if it stopped right now, I think that Movistar riders did the correct thing. They brought their teleports down into the bot lane, and I think that was a correct play. But when you see it play out, it's kind of interesting. So then we have both of the teleports come in from Fnatic. And I really do think that it was correct for everyone to kind of all in on this, because giving up first blood if you're Fnatic is worse than if you're giving up. You don't want to give up first blood if you're Movistar riders, because you're the team that's going to outscale. And if you let Fnatic start getting that advantage in the early game, you could have potential problems. So committing to this play in the bot lane with both of their teleports is kind of their way of saying, we think that you've made a mistake, we're going to punish you, and that's going to take away a part of your win condition, because Fnatic's win condition is getting ahead and snowballing. So by having all the teleports happen this early in the game, it's really increasing the variance of this game and like how volatile the lanes can be. So let me slow this down a little bit, because I do think that everybody has made a good decision at this point. So the difference in this is that right when the teleport came in from Orianna, let's just watch this again in slower speed. So right now they're pushed in. Let me speed it up a little bit. All right, so now this is when they start saying teleport bot lane. That was an okay cue by Janna. Get a root onto MF. MF knows that she's going to have to blow both of her summoners right here. 5 people come down first for Movistar, so you would expect them to be able to pick up at least a kill. But we see Set makes a great play here. So Set pulls Orianna off of Olaf and stuns at the same time. So this could have gone either way. I don't think that anyone really made a mistake. From a decision-making perspective, I think I just like everybody's decisions, and then Set makes the best play out of everybody, which is like, it's not a super hard skill to hit, but he did it correctly at the right time, and that gives his team an 800 gold lead, which is significant because you're only 4 minutes into the game. Like, at this point in the game, there's more gold value in the champion's individual statistics than in their than in the items that they're buying. So the items are really more of like, you buy what you can, but it's not going to really change anything until you hit like the 1300 gold mark or 1500 gold mark, where you get your first component piece to an item. So right now we can see Fnatic's up 1,000 gold. 1,000 gold on its own isn't really a convertible gold lead in all scenarios. Like, if Movistar riders had a 1,000 gold lead, I would feel much more confident in their ability to close out the game. But in the first game, we saw them have that gold advantage, and they threw it away because they made some bad decisions. So Fnatic is going to go for a dragon, and this is because they have an advantage in the bot lane. They shoved it in. They shoved the wave in, and then Misfortune doesn't have any summoner spells, so she can't really do anything. So at this point, Aphelios has a small lead on Misfortune, and this is part of the reason why I don't like giving away Aphelios in draft, is because all it takes is 1 or 2 mistakes, and Aphelios can just become gigantic and be a huge problem in the game. And there was a point at this game where I thought it was completely over. I'll go into more detail when that actually happens on the replay. So not much is happening yet. So we get first tower taken pretty early, and it's at 1.7 right now, and then you get that crashing into the tower. So that's a 2.6k gold lead. In general, if you've watched my videos, in my opinion, this game should be over. Like, Fnatic should win this game. The easiest way for them to win this game from this position is to take their advantage, fight around every single dragon, and focus on bot tower. So you get top tower, next you go for bot tower if you can. Open up both sides of the mid. By getting the 2 tier 1s on the side lanes, you're creating additional pressure on the mid lane as well. So that's the easiest way to kind of increase this gold lead. So here we get trades 1 for 1 in terms of people getting ganked and like dying. So the mid laner Magifelix, he died, and the support from Movistar died. And this is important because the mid laner had teleport and the AD carry didn't, so they were able to pick up the second dragon, which you're just trying to get to that 4 dragon win condition. When you pick an early game team, you really want to control all 4 dragons, because that means you have that additional win condition of Dragon Soul earlier on in the game. Like that additional 5 minutes, that might be that additional 5 minutes. Like if you get Dragon Soul on the 4th dragon or 5th dragon, that can be the difference between an item being completed. And like I mentioned, is when you have Ornn on the one team, that additional 5 minutes not only means an additional item, but probably an additional upgraded item, which is worth even more. Not worth more gold, but it's also worth gold. So right now it's almost a 3,000 gold lead. 3,000 gold, you should win the game. So we have to look for the different plays that caused Fnatic to lose this game. So right now, their priorities should be setting up Rift Herald fight and setting up dragon fights. So you want vision if you can get it, but it's not a requirement to have good team fights. But it helps you have more information, and you can kind of have a better understanding of how to play around it. There, Magifelix got pretty fortunate that he didn't die, because, well, and then Jaina flashes and kills him. But Syndra played that okay, and Orianna was punished for not having a flash. So it's 3-2, still a 3,000 gold lead. That's fine. We see that Rift Herald is up. Now Fnatic should be moving towards the Rift Herald to fight over Rift Herald. And the reason why this is important is because it gives you additional tempo. Like, you're going to be able to take the Rift Herald and use it in the bot lane, probably finish off that tower, or you could use it to try to whittle down mid. But Movistar gets this. This was a good play by Movistar in the beginning, because you are keeping the other team from getting Rift Herald. But then you get 4 kills, I think, right? Yeah, 4 kills. And this is the point in the game when I thought it was completely over. And the reason is because you have a 4,000 gold difference, and Aphelios has 2 kills and 3 assists, and is roughly even in CS, right? So that means Aphelios is going to be stronger than Misfortune for the next probably 15 minutes, unless they misplay. Because now you're at the point where you have Dragon coming up in 40 seconds. This Dragon fight should be won by Fnatic every single time. Easily, too. So they're going to do a replay here. This is part of the strength of having a Renekton. This is the time in the game where you need Renekton to have... This is when you need Renekton to justify him being picked for your team. So they get the 3 kills, and now they should be positioning around Dragon a little bit more aggressively. Shockwave really didn't do anything there. So now you see Fnatic, they didn't position the wave correctly in the mid lane so that it was pushing into the enemy team. That would have been helpful to create a little bit more pressure. But they end up getting that Dragon. So right now, if you're Fnatic, you don't really need to fight over this. It's a better thing that they didn't engage there, probably. Even though they would have won, you got what you came for. You got the Dragon, and you're gonna take bottom tower here. So you're basically trading mid tower for a tower bot lane and getting Dragon soul point. which means the next dragon that comes up, if you kill it, you get a pretty ridiculous buff. So the next dragon that comes up is going to give them additional health regeneration every time that they do damage to an enemy. I think it's either do damage to the enemy or take damage from the enemy. But this is when you start to see Fnatic making big mistakes. So at this point in the game, Aphelios has a bounty on his head. So in League of Legends, there's like a catch-up mechanic called the bounty system, and it's like if you get a bunch of kills and CS and stuff like that and have a lead, when you're killed, the enemy team gets bonus gold. So Aphelios has an additional 150 gold bounty on his head, and because that mid lane tower was taken, he's less safe in the mid lane. In general, you're typically safe in the mid lane at this point in the game because the mid tower isn't gone. So you'll see this happen pretty often in like solo queue games, like the pickup basketball games, and also in professional matches where the AD carry after a certain point starts standing in the mid lane and like just clearing waves, because it's the easiest way to help stall out the game, or at least buy time until the next objective. The problem is that he gets picked off just by being too far up. There was no reason for him to be standing up there that far. There was like no objective on the map or anything that he really needed to push out the wave to get priority on that wave. Like, all they should be doing is focusing on the dragon in 3 minutes and Baron in 50 seconds. So from this position, I still believe Fnatic should win this game. They have a almost 4,000 gold lead. They're going to lose this tower, which obviously if you can avoid losing that tower, you would prefer to, but it's not going to be the winning difference in the game. So now it's 3,500 gold instead. In general, when I talk about towers are really worth about 1,000 gold, because not only do you get the immediate gold, but it also changes like the wave positioning on the map. So it's a difficult thing to quantify, but I just threw 1,000 gold on it just to kind of speak to the game states that it gives you. I think it is a benefit to have more towers in enemy team outside of just the gold that it gives you. So we're 1 minute and 20 seconds away from dragon. This is when you need to start pushing out if you're Fnatic to get more vision control around dragon. The positioning here was pretty bad. They gave up this bot tower for free. That seems like a mistake to me as well. So now they're at a tower disadvantage in a game that they have a gold lead and want to win early. So they're just giving away chunks of gold to the enemy team now. Now their gold lead is at about 2.6k gold, which is still a winning gold lead, but it's not an insurmountable gold lead. And we also see Ornn items starting to come in. So at level 13, Ornn can upgrade one of his own items. At level 14, he can upgrade another one of his own items plus one of his teammates' items. So let's slow this down. So this is a dragon fight for the Ocean Soul, right? So if Fnatic is able to secure this dragon, they get that buff, and that buff itself is worth thousands of gold. So if Fnatic gets Dragon Soul, I think the game is over. I already thought the game was over. I sent out a tweet before that, after that Rift Herald fight, that said game over Aphelios. Like, this is why I don't go over Aphelios, because Aphelios has so much gold and has a lead over the Misfortune. Like, this is just a bad spot for Movistar in general, right? I think someone was just howling outside. But we see Fnatic kind of gets pushed off of the dragon. If I'm Fnatic, instead of standing like right around here and fighting on this part of the map, I would want them to be either up here, kind of forcing Movistar to be on this portion of the map, or I would want Fnatic down here, pulling the dragon down towards bot lane so that Movistar needs to engage on them and they have ways to escape. By being right here, it allows Movistars to put some pressure on dragon because they have the inside track. Like, in order for Fnatic to get to dragon, they need to walk into contested territory. So this just seems like a positioning mistake. Like, I don't know what was going on in their communications, but it seems like there was just not a correct call being made. So Orianna, because these champions are in a choke point, it reduces the amount of space that you have to walk around, which is bad because Orianna has the AoE ultimate. You could see that large area of control. She ulted multiple champions and got damage down on multiple champions. So now they're starting to move down into the bot lane, but they should have been down here already to contest this dragon like 30 seconds ago or a minute ago. Like, you know what a dragon fight looks like. You know what a team fight looks like. So you need to be in position so that you can win the fight. And they didn't make a smart decision there. So now Aphelios is in the front of his entire team, which is a mistake. Olaf, Set, and Renekton should all be further up than the Aphelios. But Aphelios felt like he had a chance to get off a decent ultimate, but he puts himself in a very risky position. So as you see, him being right here and starting that fight allowed Misfortune to use her ultimate on almost the entire team of Fnatic. So then this just plays out and Fnatic loses the dragon. Now, losing dragon on its own isn't like some kind of horrible outcome that they're not going to be able to recover from. But it does prolong the game for another 5 minutes. So instead of this fight being the determining fight in the game, where you have the advantage still and the gold lead and the additional Ornn items haven't come in, instead of this being the fight where you kind of bet the entire game on, it's going to be another fight later on, which is not as good, obviously. So they continue to chase down. They get 1 kill, they get 2 kills, and then they can't get anything else. So in that situation, if you're Movistar, that went perfectly for you, because even though you lost a couple of champions, you denied the Dragon Soul and pushed out the game for another couple of minutes. Having this mid tower advantage is actually pretty significant, because like I said, it's a place for one of your carries to just kind of stand and be safe, and it forces the minions to settle around this point of the map instead of this point of the map, which might not seem like a big deal, but it is. Like, it just is, because it gives you additional vision into the lane, and it increases the amount of control that Movistar has on the map. Like, the contested area on the map, instead of being like from this point back, it's like all the way up into here, which makes the jungle a lot more precarious as well. So let's speed it up again. And just taking a look at this again. So it's a 3,500 gold lead, right? So it's 3,500 gold lead plus the additional advantages that these dragons give you. So the gold lead's probably even bigger, but between like champion scaling and items and stuff like that, the 3,500 gold lead might not feel as big. The other issue, which they actually touched on in the broadcast, is the itemization choice by Magifelix. So he went for Hextech GLP, I think it's Hextech GLP, plus Banshee's Veil. And this is not the typical Syndra build. It's a lower damage build than you would normally see from a Syndra. And like, Banshee's Veil isn't even that good against Movistar. Like, what are you hoping to protect yourself from? The Sejuani ultimate? Like, is that the only thing really? Because if Orianna uses her ultimate on you, she's probably going to do QWR, which is going to eliminate the Banshee's Veil with the Q. Then you're going to get hit by the W and the ultimate, or you'll get hit by the ultimate and then the W. So you're going to take a lot of damage regardless. Like, that additional spell shield isn't going to save your life for the most part. So now this is, I think this is another part where there's a pretty big mistake that happens. So, okay, so right now, again, we're in the mid lane. Aphelios doesn't have flash. Syndra doesn't have flash, right? So if they get engaged on right now, the only way that they can get away is up through this portion of the map, and they need to run. So if they get slowed down or anything, Movistar will be able to catch up to them and try to kill them. And you don't want to die. So we see Magifelix gets caught out in the mid lane. And again, this buys another minute or two for Movistar, because not only is there the death timer that's associated with this, but then Movistar also has the chance to push in the waves, extend their vision control, and erase some of the vision control that Fnatic had. So it's not just about the gold that you're getting from this pick, it's also the amount of time that you're buying for your team. So Fnatic does a pretty good job, like, staying somewhat aggressive on the map, because they didn't give up anything right there. and they managed to maintain most of their vision control around Baron. So this was a good job by them, just like in a matter of fact way. So now we can start to see that the mid tower is becoming annoying at the very least, and a problem at worst, but probably just annoying at this point. Like, just the other team having the mid tower isn't going to stop you from getting Baron, and once you get Baron, which should be Fnatic's plan, is to get Baron or Dragon, then that tower will fall almost instantly. So it looks like they wanted to go for a play there, but they didn't. I don't know if that's really a kind of game-winning play either. So Sett gets caught out there, so that's a pretty big mistake. That was a positioning mistake that resulted from their aggressiveness in the bot lane. And again, so the engage opportunities for Movistar, it's much simpler to play out Movistar's team composition than Fnatic's team composition. And we've talked about that a couple times in the past too. Yesterday on my video with Dark Sheep, I think I mentioned, like, if it was like Ornn and Aphelios on one team, and then the other side had like some like Varus or something like that, I would always prefer the Ornn side, because Ornn gives you that additional advantage in terms of itemization. Aphelios is very strong. One of the things I don't think I mentioned is like the ease of engage. So in order for Fnatic to start a fight, who is going to start the fight? Sett could start a fight, but then he most likely dies. Renekton could start a fight, but he really wants to get onto Misfortune, and that's just his primary job. The other issue is that with Orianna and Janna and these other champions that they have, the amount of disengage and peel, it's called peeling, it's essentially being a blocker for your most important teammate. So right now, the most important teammate is either Orianna or Misfortune. Misfortune does more consistent damage. Orianna does more like burst damage. Like she can do a ton of damage to multiple enemies at once if she gets her ultimate combination off on somebody. So if Renekton goes after Misfortune or Olaf goes after Misfortune, all these players are going to like peel away and try to help their most important teammate. So now we see Orianna is looking for a good ultimate onto one of Fnatic's players. If you're Fnatic and you don't want to fight in this area right here, you might want to consider going up closer to Baron, but then that gives the inside scoop for Movistar on the mid lane and the Dragon as well. So Fnatic at this point has basically decided, we're all in on this Dragon. We need this Dragon to win. And then again, one of the carries from Fnatic gets caught out. So that's what I'm talking about right there. So he got a little greedy, wanted to use his ultimate to hit multiple people on Fnatic, but while he was doing that, he got engaged on. And once Aphelios goes down, this fight is just over. So now it's like, okay, well, do we try to fight the Dragon, or do we give up the Dragon? Like, what can we really do here? Sett doesn't have flash at this point. They could have went after him, but instead they just try to focus on the Dragon. So now it's like, I remember during the broadcast they were saying like, oh, you know, like if you're Fnatic, why don't you just try to kill this off from range, like flash into the pit and just try to get lucky with a smite. And it's like, that's probably not what you want to do, because if your jungler dies right now, then Movistar is just going to go take Baron, which is another like bad outcome that you don't really want. So they force Fnatic away. That means that it's another not free dragon, but it's another dragon for Movistar. So Movistar has again bought themselves some time. So now we're at like the 28-minute mark. So this is the most important part of the game for an Ornn team. Right now, he has an upgraded item. Misfortune has an upgraded item. He's going to finish off Abyssal Mask. That's going to give him another item. He could theoretically upgrade Sejuani's Warmogs, or Orianna would have to get a different item, because there's nothing that she has that can be upgraded at this point. The fascination that teams have with Hextech GLP, I think it's the GLP. The one that like sprays the icy bolts or whatever. I don't really get it. I think that I understand why they like it. There's like the active that slows down the other team and like that can give you a positional advantage. But in terms of raw stats, I'm pretty sure it's not the best item available to to AP mid laners. So personally, I think that's a mistake. I'd have to look at the numbers. Like I have a spreadsheet with all that, but just based off of what, like my intuition, that's what I remember being the case. And this is an okay idea by Fnatic. They go for the mid lane, they get mid lane. They start pressuring the side wave, which is smart because this is a part of the game where they have an advantage. This is an interesting fight as well. So it looked like Shiko, I'm gonna say Shiko, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. It looked like Shiko was out of position. So Movistar starts collapsing, or Fnatic starts collapsing. Shiko ends up getting all the way out of this, and it's like, it's pretty insane that that's even possible. So Renekton goes in, and like I said, everybody's kind of just protecting Misfortune. It's difficult for Renekton to go kill Misfortune by himself when she has all this help. And now it's only 1.4k gold. So it's 1.4k gold. You have the upgraded item. You have another upgraded item. Both of those items are worth about 1,000 gold, I think, the upgrade. So you could theoretically argue that now Movistar is ahead in gold. And once Movistar gets ahead in gold, you would need to have like a tremendous outplay by Fnatic in order to win this game. And then this is a great... Well, I don't know why they went away from that, but that was a great call by Movistar to go after the Baron at that point, because there's nothing Fnatic can really do to stop them. And like, you always need to hit that point in the game where you try to win the game. Like, you need to make a call that you know can win your team the game if it goes correctly. And they just felt like the Baron was an easy one right there. I agree. I think it was the right decision. And I love teams that go after sneaky Barons and stuff like that, because the amount of gold advantage it gives your team and the amount of tempo and everything is just like, it's pretty crazy how impactful a Baron can be. Especially when you're in a losing position. But right there, they were even or a little bit ahead, so it's less impressive. But we've seen some teams like T1 go for Baron when they're behind, and if you can pull it off, it can win you a game. So I think that's one win condition a lot of teams just don't really look for that often. So now they're just kind of stalling out time. Sejuani has another chance to get a pick onto Maddie. And this is when that's really when the game ended, in my opinion, because they get another tower, they get another dragon, which buys them another 5 to 6 minutes. It's basically not impossible for Fnatic to win, but you're not only required at this point to play the game perfectly and shot call the game perfectly, but you need to outplay the other team. And that's one thing that I think a lot of teams, that's like a bad habit just from solo queue, because you can be in a lot of bad positions and win in solo queue just because you're better than the other team, or better than the other player that's in your lane. But in a team environment, the skill expression is a lot lower normally. And it's also, it's not a correct thing to like play around being better than your opponent. Like, you want to base things off of like, if both teams are playing at a similar level, how do I create an advantage for myself? Because obviously when you have a team like the Fuse Kids or Isuba, it's like, yeah, the better team can play whatever they want, but it doesn't mean that they were correct for picking Champion A instead of Champion B, when Champion A would have given them a better percentage chance to win the game from like an analytics perspective. My throat's getting sore. So yeah, I mean, I called it pretty early. I think that Fnatic should have won this game when they were up 5,000 gold. But I also think Movistar should have won game 1, because even though they only had like a 1,000 gold lead, everything was in that game was moving in the right direction. They kind of just messed it up. And in this game, Fnatic lost because they continuously got caught out in the mid lane. And the only way that you can catch out the enemy team in the mid lane is if you have good engage options. And Movistar has that. They have Ornn. They have Sejuani. On the side of Fnatic, it's more of like chasing champions down and forcing the enemy team to engage onto you. That's really when they're at their best. So when you get into these spots where it's like traditional war fighting, where it's like your line of soldiers against their line of soldiers, and it's all front to back, that's a lot more difficult to play if you're Fnatic. You really want the guerrilla warfare style where it's like you're coming in from multiple angles and flanking and all that kind of stuff. That's when your team has a much better chance. And they also could have used like split pushing or something like that, but they did not choose to do that early enough in the game, because there's no reason that Fnatic shouldn't have had like an actual tower lead in this game. So now we have Dragon coming up in 45 seconds. Again, easy engage for Movistar. Misfortune ultimate does a lot of damage. And Aphelios just doesn't have the amount of space that he needs to fight and win team fights. And I believe this is the end of the game. Yeah, that's the end of the game. So, I mean, I picked Movistar. I'm glad Movistar won, but Fnatic should have won this game, in my opinion. So, just my reaction to these games, I think Movistar won the draft in game 1, but they lost the game. Then in, let's see, game 2. Just getting Graves 2 games in a row is ridiculous. Like, you shouldn't do that. Misfortune, Rakan. Yeah, so again, I think Fnatic's idea is playing Set, Trundle, Corki into Graves, and for some reason they think that gives them an advantage, but I prefer the Graves side of that. So from a draft perspective, Orianna played really poorly in this game, but they still won because their team composition was easier to play out. Like, for Fnatic's team, they don't have great engage from their top laner or their jungler. Like, Trundle can engage with his pillar, but it's much more difficult to do that than it is for Ornn to press his ultimate. Like, it's just fundamentally more difficult. It's fundamentally different kind of engage. Rakan can also engage very well. Corki and Ezreal are both poke champions, so you really need them to get ahead. Since you have 2 poke champions, you basically need to get ahead so that you can siege, increase your tower advantage, and build a gold lead that way. And again, that's just a more difficult way to play. And then game 3, Graves was gone, which I think Fnatic finally, like, good job. You banned out one of the most important champions one time in 3 games. Them getting Aphelios was actually really good, but the team composition didn't really help out Aphelios that much. Like, this team composition works out for Aphelios if they can get that big lead, because then he can just be like oppressive and like running at the enemy team. But again, they just lacked the easy engage that you would kind of want your team to have. So that's basically it. I know Chris Brown was asking for this on Twitter. He's very active and is always commenting and liking stuff and retweeting stuff. So thanks, Chris. Hope you enjoyed this video specifically. To everybody else that watches these videos all the time, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. If you want to help support the channel, the best thing that you can do is to retweet my tweets when I put out video links, share my content, and just be active. So thanks for watching. I'm Michael. This is League of Items, and that's a review.